Referee videos don't always make for the most interesting videos, but in this particular instance, you yourself might be thinking, hey, our team has been screwed this season by referees. I want to hear more from these guys. So if you do want to hear more from these guys, hit that subscribe button. You don't have to do it just yet. If you don't want to do it at the end of the video. We are trying to do some interesting videos on this channel, and this is a particularly interesting subject. These guys right here, this guy in particular, but these guys right here, referees, right? They're always sort of, mic'd up. And these microphones turns out really handy because the Premier League is going to release, this is the interesting bit, footage and audio from when the referees were making key decisions throughout the season. Now, we have a lot to unpack on this, and I mean a lot to unpack. And you're probably sitting there thinking, in your own mind, hey, certain people have been screwed this season. I've been screwed. Our team has been screwed. If you're an Arsenal fan in particular, you've already heard about the ways that you guys have sort of been screwed. But by the way, you heard the way you were screwed, and then nothing was done about it. It was basically just soz. So with that in mind, I want to evaluate what this new idea of releasing footage is going to be. And basically, it's going to be a one-off. It's going to be a one-off where we hear from people like Mike Dean, not exactly Mike Dean, but people like Mike Dean, doing things like this, looking at a screen and saying, is that a penalty? As you've already seen, there are plenty of people who always hold their ear throughout the referee community. There are loads of people. If only they had a way that they could record these conversations. If only there was a way that we could, almost in a live forum, hear these things. But for now, we will take this on face value, all right? Good God. Howard Webb, beautiful guy, probably one of the best looking referees in the game, is going to be talking talking us through, but also just talking everyone through, and probably some of the referees, and also doing a bit of PR around some of the big decisions that were made this season. Now, we don't know what the decisions are yet, but we know it's going to be a one-off piece on broadcasters who already hold the rights to to all the Premier League stuff. And we know that there is going to be Howard Webb explaining elements of some of these decisions, kind of from a referee's perspective, from a referee group's perspective, from a VAR perspective. By the way, as a side piece here, what is really interesting about this is it's going to be potentially, I think, released before the end of the season. Two things with this. Does that spin a bad guy? Does it spin an element of, hey, these guys deserve to win the title. These guys don't deserve to win the title. These guys deserve to be relegated. These guys don't deserve to be relegated. Will there be bigger questions? Will there be wider narratives that we dig into before the end of the season? At the same time, does it give prominence to referees when really what we want to do is give prominence to players, to football, to all these kind of things? Be interesting to know your thoughts on that, because if Arsenal, say the last day of the season, know they've been screwed out of something, know that people are against them, know a referee that gave the wrong decision or whatever it is there a bigger question here to be asked about, like, hey, potentially we hear that human decisions are made by referees in the league and they are open to biases. Do we want people to become, or want them to become star referees? Maybe if you're really good, maybe they're good. But do we also want them to become controversial characters within that as well, where we give them a voice and a platform and they might just be quite self-important people? Do you get what I mean by that? And to an extent, it feels like a bit of PR, a little bit of spin, right? But it opens up a gate, possibly, to other things to happen in football, right? And the fact that we're always asking, what was the referee's decision? Why did the referee say this? Why did the referee do that? Why did this guy get sent off? Why was this guy not awarded a penalty after a foul? Why was this foul given and why was this foul not given? This is possibly a forum to open up an element of accountability for referees who in more recent times have possibly not been as accountable as we want them to be, and maybe that is a good thing. We can get into that in just a second. It will probably be underwhelming. I'm just going to call it now, guys. I think this is going to be really underwhelming. I think it's going to be one of those ones where we try and treat it like a big thought exercise. You know I love those. But at the same time, don't get too excited about it. Why? Let me try and find. Let me try and find it. It's convenient to say this now, all right? Jurgen Klopp himself kind of questioned what a referee said to him more recently. There have been a lot of these people in the headlines. He said, I didn't like what the referee said to me. The referee then said, well, I didn't say anything. The PGMOL then backed him. They then said they released the audio at some point. Fascinatingly, are they going to release the audio? Is the audio out? Will we ever hear the audio? Will we ever hear full audio? Will some of it be taken away? This is my point. It kind of opened up a can of worms. And Other managers have had their say as well. This is a photo of Jose Mourinho. No, wait, this is a photo of Jose Mourinho. I just happened to leave this image of whatever that condition that fox is in just by him. Jose Mourinho and I have a similar condition. Whenever our lives are stressful, you can see it on our faces. And when our lives are good, you can see it on our faces. You decide what stage my life is at. Let me know in the comments below what stage of my life is at. Just saying. But if we go back to, say, just a couple of months ago, maybe even a year ago, we saw similar headlines. This is a TalkSport headline. Fans could listen to audio recordings from referees after Premier League games as FA absolutely explore new plans to demystify the game. And then the same question was asked not long back in 2021. The same question was asked. Again, the same question was asked the year before. Because guess what? These microphones right here, these things which sit on these referees' heads, they're really good at recording things. And it turns out that those are recorded conversations, fascinatingly. And within that, do we want to hear the referees? Are we excited to hear what the referees have to say? Does what the referees say matter? There are a lot of people who say, hey, the Premier League should be more accountable. There is a lot of money riding on this globally, on betting. There are a lot of fans who have an interest in this, sitting in the stadium, sitting at home, sitting around the world now. And there are also a lot of managers, a lot of clubs, a lot of other people who want to see these kind of people accountable. Because guess what? These people are incredibly important to the game. Now, there are other people who say the other way, who say, look, I want to keep this as close to in the park football as possible. I want to keep this as close to the game that we play five-a-side week in, week out as I can. But maybe that's slightly diluted in a way. Maybe you have to accept that at a very high level of football, you need to record managers, you need to record refs, you need all these kind of things because we need a record of what went on. Now, there is the technology there. Personally, I think this doesn't go far enough. I think that you should be able to hear the referees almost constantly throughout the game. You should be able to hear VAR almost constantly throughout the game, should you wish. And maybe initially it is us similar to F1, hearing like a team radio. Maybe it is, us hearing snippets minutes later of the referees. Maybe it's similar to Australian football, which I put just here. See that? That is an Australian referee. I do believe in FIFA. But also in Australia, obviously, because he is Australian. These guys already have mic'd up referees, and you can already hear a lot of that broadcast during a game. The NBA, stay with me, the NFL, both have referees mic'd up. You actually hear the referee explain which way a call is going to go to a whole stadium of people. So I'm not saying it's just a broadcast thing. I think the stadium should also get elements of insight here. The referee should almost have to account for their decisions. Similarly, when the referees have to make certain decisions, and also just in general, the referees are mic'd up in the NBA. Do you know why? There was controversy before. Referees were paid off to do certain things, etc., etc., and they found they needed some form of accountability for referees. What are we in now? An age where we feel we need accountability for referees. This might seem like quite open and closed, and I get it. VAR is a big thorn in our sides in terms of watching football right now. But maybe, just maybe, if we implement some of this stuff and we use technology in a smart way, not just as if we're in the middle of a park as a bunch of idiots, then we can get this to a good situation. Howard Webb doesn't seem like such a bad guy. He seems like a corporate guy, sure, and the corporations at the moment are the people who sit above us and tell us, hey, this happened, but sucks, right? Maybe an element of accountability. Maybe this could go even further, where we're looking at, hey, there is a stop clock on how long it takes a referee to make a decision. If they can't make a new decision outside of VAR within that time, then the decision just stands and it is what it is. Now, whether that will actually lead to more good decisions or not is a better thing. Maybe we need referees to be a little bit quicker. Maybe, weirdly, in a multi-billion-pound league, we should expect that the technology is at the very forefront of where we're going here. If a referee can have a watch on his wrist where it tells him if the ball has crossed the line, why isn't there more money being implemented in the game? Why, in a really expensive league and in a globally kind of viewed by billions of people every week league, do we not have just unlimited resources available to the referees? Why are the referees not given huge budgets? Maybe they already have huge budgets, but why isn't there a bottomless pit of money? And the only answer is, well, the Premier League and its corporate levels of nature don't quite have a grasp on what is actually going on right now. So that's what I'm saying. I personally think this is a move in the right direction, but I also acknowledging these headlines, think it is a bit of a gesture right now. I think there is a gesture towards us saying, hey, a lot of questions are getting asked of us right now, but we need to keep you at bay. And they've done this in 2020, 2021, 2022. They need to be more accountable for VAR. They need to be more accountable out on the field. Referees, if they were mic'd up, I think would probably mind their P's and Q's a little bit more. Maybe you just put mics in more general places. Or is this an overstep of the surveillance state, right? Of us just going, we need to overstep every boundary. And once you open a door, once you start to get all of this stuff, you become very entitled to this kind of thing. Is it going to demystify in a way that we don't want to have it demystified? Do we want to hear referees effing and blinded? Do we want to hear them swearing? Do we want to hear them doing whatever? Do we want to hear people swearing at referees? Do we want to hear people angry? Or, similar to when Simon Jordan over the last week kind of questioned Jurgen Klopp's integrity, do we want to have a record of what is actually said so that people will be accountable? So that people like Simon Jordan who say, Jurgen Klopp is this, he's got this kind of demeanor, these kind of things, and ruin a man's reputation, do we want to see that happen? At the same time, should Jose Mourinho and people like that say, and by the way, Jose Mourinho said, I recorded myself, the referee didn't record, I recorded myself because this referee is one of the most, I think he said did he say corrupt? Or he said not great in the game? It was a crazy quote that I heard from him. So on top of that as well, should managers get mic'd up? Now, I've got a little story here. I had quite a unique experience back in 2012. That's over a decade ago now. I know. I look good in it, right? Fresh out of university, maybe still in university, I went to the Euros, which were in Poland and Ukraine with Adidas. It was a fully paid ticket to get there. I went to the final, both semi-finals, all these kind of things. I was the original Thogden. Good God. But within that, I got to reach and meet Pierluigi Collina. I interviewed the guy. I got invited to the referees' camp itself, a place where the referees were allowed to sort of train, and they were looking at. I think they had the sixth referee there, or the two guys at either end of the field. They were training. It was quite an earnest group of men. It was quite a nice group of men. There were a lot of famous referees in there. Pierluigi Collina, obviously one of the most famous of all time. He made it onto the cover of a game, for goodness sake. Probably one of the greatest games of all time, by the way. Pez. Back in the day, it was a good game. FIFA was good as well, but PES was just, at that generation, wow. Anyway, I sat down with him. He was very earnest. He was a bit of a corporate guy, but he was quite open about it, right? And he was speaking about where the game needed to go. At that time, VAR wasn't really so much of a discussion, though it was kind of bubbling under, right? And they were talking about needing to use technology. Now, if all of these guys are mic'd up in the first place, I don't see why we shouldn't try and utilize it, should we say. But I also think the problem being, within a season, you need an element of consistency. And I think that's what we're going for here. We're going for consistency, and we're going for the basics just being fulfilled ahead of fancy bells and whistles. This show feels like a bit of a fancy bell and whistle. Something used to kind of just go, you just palm us off a little bit. It's like, hey, you had your answers, now move on. I think this should be implemented live. I think it should be something that broadcasters have access to. I think it should be something that journalists have access to. It should be something that we have access to. It's almost a matter of public record. If there is the technology there to empower people, then do it. If you are the People's League, do it. Be more transparent. It will make for really interesting conversations, and maybe that's what we want football to be, fueling societal conversations. It will make for better broadcasting. It will make for more insightful broadcasting. I'm not saying, therefore, you have to open up absolutely everything. We need to be able to see every camera. But just to make the league more insightful, more accessible, do this. Now, I had this conversation. I thought it was a very earnest guy. I think in Europe in general, there are different perceptions of referees. In general, you can kind of put them in this group of people. Pierluigi Collina, Howard Webb, a couple of other people, maybe don't seem maybe as entitled as someone like Mike Dean. I'm sure Mike Dean's a lovely guy in real life, by the way, but as a referee, kind of weird, sort of, I didn't quite make the police vibes. And that's a joke. Obviously, I'm exercising sports hate here. Howard Webb seems like a good guy. So does Mike Dean, to be fair. Only a couple of people don't. My favourite referee of all time, what you're asking? Uriah Rennie. Brilliant. Anyway, Pierluigi Collina was probably my favourite referee of all time. I got to sit down with him for about 10, 15 minutes. We interviewed him. We chatted about the game. We chatted about the importance of consistency, the importance of all these kind of things. He seemed very earnest. All these guys seemed like real nice guys. They were just family men who just wanted to get along. And sometimes you're going to need these kind of people in the game. The argument is you don't want to make them the focus. I think At the moment, VAR is too much the focus. If we begin to normalize the conversations around this and become more transparent, which is probably what VAR should have been from day one, because I think they were too focused on accuracy. The focus shouldn't be, accuracy should be part of it, but transparency should be the other part. And that's what Pierluigi Collina has always spoken about. So I'm all for it, but I'm interested to know what you guys think. Let me know. Should we hear everything? Should we hear more? Should we hear less? Do we really care to hear this stuff? If it is edited, if there's bits which are redacted, if it's kind of a convenient PR piece, let me know in the comments below and I'll chat to you guys in a little while. Much love.